need to hold. This is my wife. See that? This is the Pinhead that I made. And today I'm gonna be doing a tier list of the Hellraiser movies because I have problems. I want to move my face. Smallify. There we go. Recently, in like the past year, I've gotten really into Hellraiser. I watched the first film like years ago and I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I should watch this again. And then I went kind of insane. I made Pinhead for myself. I was having a time. No! Wow, this is, you were staying so well for like 5 minutes. If I get, we're fine. This is unscripted, by the way. Anyway, today I'm doing a tier list of the Hellraiser movies because I'm having a time. And I've talked about this with my friends that have not seen all the Hellraiser movies, and I have expressed these ideas, but I need to, instead of just talking to myself about it, I need to talk to myself about it and then post it online so that people can validate me. So let me explain kind of the tiers that I'm doing right here. The top is inspired by Nick's Fears, fucking wow. Instead of that being like, this is really good, I made a separate tier for things that are so bad it's good. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best film out of them, but it's something that like flabbergasts me that it exists and delights me to no end. I have it be in a special kind of separate area that isn't technically in kind of like a ranked order, if that makes sense. This next one is actually top tier, so these are the movies that are like good movies. It's not gonna be a lot in this part. Alright, but just alright is basically like the most middle of the road, like, this is fine. This is, this is alright. The next one is bad, but not so bad it's good. This is kind of like the distinction between this one and this one, whereas some of the movies up here might be bad. They're like extremely entertaining. These ones are bad, but just bad. And then the last one is misery, but not in a sexy way. And by that, I mean these are movies that I not only tapped out of, but that I cannot find. Like, I scrape at the bottom of the barrel to find any redeemable qualities about them. And while I'm ranking these, I have my wife Pinhead on my shoulder, and he's gonna be there to help me out and give me moral support through this endeavor. So yeah, I hope people enjoy. I've heard that people like when I talk about things, so yeah, let's get started. Alright, I'm gonna go in chronological order of the films, and luckily in this tier list they do arrange them in chronological order, which is amazing because honestly, the cover art for the Hellraiser films really blurs together. It's like, Pinhead box, Pinhead box but more blue, Pinhead box but more brown orange. Actually, they use the exact same photograph as the first movie. I just noticed that. That's so funny. This one Pinhead but like more evil and in space. This one Pinhead but more yellow, this one Pinhead but more red, this one Pinhead but box bigger than Pinhead, this Pinhead green, Pinhead angry gray, Pinhead profile pic, and then Pinhead silhouette. So it's like, don't listen, shh. I love Pinhead, but sometimes it's a lot of Pinhead. It's hard when you have a horror mascot for something, which is a film that doesn't actually warrant a mascot because of the themes of the movie. So the first film, Hellraiser 1, this one, actually, before I get started, I'm gonna put So Bad It's Good on top of Misery because these two kind of exist in like their own little dimension, right? So when I'm thinking about the first Hellraiser movie, I'm gonna go actually top tier. Because watching the first Hellraiser movie again recently, it isn't like, and I say this for all the Hellraiser movies, they're not necessarily like the most perfect fit. Like they're all wacky, they're all goofy and campy, and that's kind of what makes them really enjoyable. But there still, to this day, is nothing quite like the first Hellraiser movie, and that includes all the other Hellraisers, besides maybe Hellraiser 2. It's like a sort of like slow burn drama where you have the real horror being this horrible man and nothing to do with like supernatural entities. It's literally like, here is this disgusting, horrible man that is doing these really horrible things, and you are trying to escape that, and Kirsty is being tormented by this horrible person. It's really just a fun time. I have a really fun time with it. The sequence where Frank reanimates for the first time, those practical effects are still really good. Like the reverse stop motion that they do in that sequence is so... If you haven't seen that, if you haven't seen any of the Hellraiser movies, I'm not sure why you're here, unless you just really like me, in which case I'm flattered. But like, if you haven't seen any of the Hellraiser films and you want to get a sense of like what the kind of gore level is, I would watch that sequence of Frank reanimating, because it gives a sense for like what some of the more gruesome appearing things are, I would say, throughout the films. Like, you know, the films range in gruesomeness, I would say, in gory quality, but it's a very artfully done level of gore a lot of the time. And something that I was recently talking about was how Hellraiser itself is like, it does something that I haven't seen from other horror movies before, and it's a case of like, in most horror films, if there is a female character in that horror film, oftentimes there will be at least one sequence where not only she is the victim of like regular horror violence that men are subjected to as well, but there is specifically like a sexualized violence that is put onto her. So whether that's like, oh, I'm going to bed, so I'm changing into my lingerie to go to bed, and then I'm asleep, and then, oh, the monster's creeping over my bed, and ooh. Or it's like, oh, I'm getting undressed, and I'm going into the bathtub or the shower. You know, vulnerable, sexualized violence situations. Hellraiser is one of the few films that puts men in that situation, where, like, the men who die in the film are, for the most part, like, in states of like undressed and in a sexualized, compromising circumstance where they are killed, and the woman is not like the subject of that same violence, if that makes sense. So I'd like to also give a shout out to Clive Barker's original book, Hellbound Heart, in which Frank is able to reanimate and doesn't fully die, because before he gets like chained and like torn apart by the Cenobites in the beginning of the story, he like was so horny that he jerked off and his semen got in the floorboards, and that's what allowed him to reanimate when his brother Larry spilled blood on the floor. And I think that's just amazing. I think that's amazing, and I think that more films should be like this. I think it's a shame that there are no films like this. Like, if you go on Letterboxd and you type in Hellraiser, and then you click on Hellraiser, and then you click on like, oh, what are movies like Hellraiser? None of them are like Hellraiser. Even other Hellraiser movies are not like Hellraiser. All that to say, very good. Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. Now, my take is honestly, Hellraiser 2 is about as good as Hellraiser 1, and for different reasons. I find that Hellraiser 2 is a lot less of a slow burn. Hellraiser really, like, it's honestly a little slow, like it really plods along in the beginning, and then it, like, ramps up quite a bit. Hellraiser 2 kind of starts crazy because it's like a direct sequel, so we know, it's assumed in the text that the viewer knows who these people are, what they're doing, why they're doing it. When you have like the different characters that appear again, it's more kind of like, oh, it's them again, and now they're doing something new and different. What I really love about Hellraiser 2 is that I would say that it's the best one in terms of like piecing together world building and like interesting plot. So the plot itself is kind of like Kirsty is trying to get out of this like mental hospital because she's like, oh, a guy with nails sticking out of his head is like chasing me in my like dreams, and people will be like, that doesn't sound real, which is fair. She befriends this girl who is coded as like autistic, probably. She's nonverbal, and being abused by the doctors there. Like, there's this implied kind of notion that the main doctor there is whack, and he's been collecting lament configurations, or lament shard boxes, as we will learn very soon. You know, here's these people that want to learn more about this other world. Julia comes back, but she doesn't have any skin, and she wears like a white two-piece suit that's like stained with blood, and she doesn't have an undershirt on. And let me just tell you that did things to me psychologically that I still cannot fully unpack. If you don't see what I see, then that's on you. But like, if you open your mind to the possibilities. So you have this very interesting, like, we're actually going through this realm that in the previous film was like, you had hints of it. You had Kirsty running through these hallways and creatures kind of like coming after her, but you didn't have this full like exploration. So that makes it really interesting. The actual climax is really wacky, and I think it takes like the camp factor a little higher, because the final fight, as it were, is way more strange than the first film, where the first film is kind of like, oh, the box can like basically perform an exorcism and banish them back to their like home dimension. Whereas in this, it's very much like, we're gonna have an actual like fight. And it's very funny. This, I think, is also the first film where we get hints of like, oh, these beings aren't just like these interdimensional sci-fi guys. These are like people in hell. Hell is real. And it just gets... Writers take that more and more literally as time goes on, and it gets worse. But yeah, Hellbound, really fun, honestly. Like, I think it would be really fun to do like a creature feature double night, like double show thing with these two movies, because they feed into each other really nicely because it's such a direct sequel, and it's really enjoyable. Hellraiser 3. Now this is the first one where we're gonna start to get a little funky here. Hellraiser 3 is going in fucking wow so bad it's good, because Hellraiser 3 on the surface is not a very good movie. Spoiler alert, it's not a very good movie. It is going off the legacy of having Andy Robinson, who played Garrick from Deep Space Nine. He played Larry in the first Hellraiser. Going off of that, we have Terry Farrell, who played Jadzia Dax from DS9, who is in Hellraiser 3. And she's trying with this script. It's basically, we have this reporter character who's played by Terry Farrell, who is trying to see what happened at this place, because there was like this big like murder thing. This guy exploded with chains, and they're like, that's not normal in the hospital. So they're like, whoa, what's going on? And then it turns out there's this rich guy who owns this like nightclub, who bought like the pillar where all the Cenobites, like after they're kind of defeated at the end of Hellraiser 2, they get fused into this pillar, and they're like part of this kind of, it's a cool sculptural piece, honestly. It's like very wild looking, but he like buys this pillar in like a whack kind of modern art way, and then Pinhead's in there, and Pinhead's like, yo, give me blood, I'm thirsty. And things just kind of like escalate from there, and it's really wacky. They go more into Pinhead's backstory, being a soldier in World War I in the British Army. And it's very like, I don't really care. I don't really like, maybe this is a hot take, but for some characters, I really don't care about their backstory, because they are more interesting when they're shrouded in mystery. And Pinhead's one of those characters. Like, there's things that are entertaining about playing around with Pinhead's backstory, but like, I really could take or leave any actual exploration of it. So Hellraiser 3, like, I would say is, for the first like 30 minutes, very like meh. It's very like, okay, this is very much not in the same vein as the first two. It's very much like, this is a bad action movie. But then, right, Pinhead comes back, and he comes out, and he starts turning everybody into Cenobites, and he makes a guy who shoots CDs out of his head so fast they cut off other people's heads, and he breaks into this church where then Terry Farrell's character is like, oh, if demons aren't real, then what is that? And like shit points, like makes the pastor look at Pinhead, who like breaks down the door, and then he does like an unholy stigmata thing. It's so, like, honestly, for the last, like, this movie is worth it to me for the last, like, 30 minutes or so, because it's so campy, not like camp nonsense that is so funny. It's so funny. And you can tell that Doug Bradley, who's the actor that plays Pinhead, you can tell he's having a really fun time just like screaming and laughing and being just like an evil villain, which is not really the personality that Pinhead had in the previous two films. So it's a really fun time. Is it a good movie? No, it's absolutely not a good movie, but it's a fun time. And if you want to see a stupid movie with a lot of your friends, it's a good pick for that. The only other thing that I would say would be a good pick for that is Hellraiser 4, because Bloodlines, because this movie, tagline, Pinhead's in space, it's basically like the backstory of what the Hellraiser puzzle cube box is. We can blame the French, because this French toy maker, something La Manchard, I don't remember his first name, he made this puzzle box because he was like, oh, you know, whatever, but it turns out it's got like occult energy, and like, oh my god, I unlocked this door to hell or whatever. That's crazy. But then, like, this box just keeps kind of like darting around the world, and it's implied, like, in the comics that people made replicas of it, which ends up doing the same thing as creating this portal to this, like, hell dimension. So the movie's kind of in three parts. It's like, you get first chunk is in the past, talking about kind of this, the development of the thing. The middle part, which is kind of the main part, where it is modern day, like, this guy's descendants trying to, like, work with that family legacy. And implied from, like, the third Hellraiser, where Terry Farrell's character basically, like, chucks the box into this thing of concrete that gets kind of plowed over, you know, for a building that's being constructed, and the building turns into a giant kind of puzzle box thing, and that was kind of just like a really wacky way to end the movie. In this one, it's like, oh yeah, here's this wacky puzzle box building, so Pinhead's gonna come back, and he's like bonkers. Because the whole thing about the third film was trying to humanize Pinhead and be like, oh, you were human once. And then eventually the human side of Pinhead and like the evil demon side of Pinhead fused together at the end to make regular Pinhead again. It was very much like a non-character arc. So in this movie, he's like, I want to rule everything. And there's like this lady who's like the princess of hell or something. And there's like drama between her and Pinhead. They make other Cenobites in the similar way to the third film, except like these ones are kind of cooler. Like they have one, which are these two twins, these two brothers, actually, they're not twins, that kind of get fused together at like the head, and there's like gears and stuff. They're pretty cool. Honestly, I'm gonna put it's still in the fucking wow so bad it's good, because this movie is like nonsense. It can't go in actually top tier, and it can't go in all right. It has to be here. But I think it's better than Hellraiser 3, because then the third part is in the far future, where they're summoning the Cenobites again so that they can like finally kill them. I really don't. It's kind of like Alien, where it's like, we're gonna fight them now. And they do fight, and it's really silly, and then they blow him up on a space station. They just blow up the entire thing, and it's really funny. This idea of like, oh, here's this like extra dimensional being. Oh yeah, we can kill that guy just by blowing up a space station. That's fine. Hellraiser Inferno, this is Hellraiser 5. Now this one, people have a lot of mixed opinions on it. I am personally going to put this in all right, because It's definitely not a so bad it's good, like it doesn't have that kind of campy, wacky feeling to it. But it's the first Hellraiser movie in this series. Right now we've talked about 4, this is the 5th one. It's the first one that's doing something different. Hellraiser, like 2, 3, and 4 kind of do the same thing where it's like, oh, the Cenobites are back and they're doing something wacky and we have to like stop the wacky. Inferno, the main character is a detective who's basically going through trying to solve this series of murders, and along the way kind of realizes that things are really strange. All the evidence doesn't conclusively lead to like one individual, but all of the circumstances align with him being there. So it's a very psychological kind of thriller. True to its name, it goes into a Dante's Inferno interpretation of Hellraiser, where it's like, oh, you actually are in your own judgment space, where you are reenacting your personal hell of like how you let down all these people in your life, how you fucked over and basically led to the deaths of so many people in your life. That's bad. You know, you fucked up. And you have to just live with that. I really like the Pinhead that's in Hellraiser Inferno, I think is way more accurate to what Pinhead was in the first film than I think all the other ones, because Pinhead's very much just like a force that's there. Throughout the film, he's like imagining these people are being killed by like Cenobites and basically otherworldly beings. This, God, what they call him, like the conductor? The engineer, that's what they called him. Basically, he's like seeing all these people trying to learn, and he thinks it's like this mob boss or something. Everyone's just kind of mysteriously referring to this guy called the engineer. It all just kind of turns out that it was him. His whole existence through the film is a repeating nightmare. So he is already dead. And it does it in a way that isn't like, oh, it was all a dream kind of thing, because it's framed in the sense of like, this is a never-ending like torment. It's really interesting, and I think it's kind of overlooked. I think because it's more psychological and it's a lot slower than obviously the previous two. The previous two are bananas, but I think that this is one that is worthwhile to check out. These two, like, if you aren't in a place where you're like, I want to see something like stupid, these might not do it for you, but this one still would. This one, I think, is still good. Not top tier, because there's a lot of stuff that doesn't really land for me. And there's a lot of times where I get kind of like, oh, geez. But there's some stuff that they do in this movie that I'm like, wow, that was darker than I thought you were going to go. So I would say this is worthwhile to check out. Enjoyable film to me. To me, at least. I'm not talking about anybody else. Now for something completely different, and by that I mean exactly the same, Hellraiser 6, Hellseeker. This one goes in bad, but not so bad it's good. Hellseeker is, they didn't have any ideas, and so they took basically the same plot as Inferno, but instead of it being a detective that's going through this psychological, like, wacky shit, it's Kirsty's fiance. So Kirsty comes back, which, you know, we love her, we love to see it, but she's, like, betrayed by her fiance, who like is trying to get her estate or something, like trying to do some insurance fraud kind of stuff, or like life insurance fraud, I don't know. Throughout the film, it's kind of framed as like that you're from the perspective of this guy who has lost his memory, and he's not sure like what people are talking about when they're talking to him. Like everyone's like, whoa, you're acting like a completely different person. And it's like after this kind of car accident where he has amnesia, and he's like, oh, I don't know what's going on. And then he slowly kind of finds out, like, when a character's talking to him who's basically like, yo, are you, like, ready to, you know, do the plan of, like, killing your wife? And he's like, what are you talking about? And it turns out he totally did that. And Kirsty set him up and launched him into the ocean, girl boss shit, and she survived. She has the box. It's a lot of shit of, like, it's a very strange setup, because similar to Inferno, it's kind of like all a dream in the sense of like he's already in the underworld, he's already living his personal hell. But the way they do it is very like, oh, Kirsty, like, I'm gonna film you open, you have to open the box, I got this box for you to open, and I know that, and she's like, why did you get this for me, you know this traumatized me, and he's like, open the box, and she's like, I guess I will, and I'm like, why? There's a lot of stuff about it that doesn't really make sense, and it doesn't really flow well, because Kirsty is like the only likable character in the film, and she's in it for so little. It's very like exhausting. I will say, like, even though this is so bad, not good, not really worth anyone's time, I will say the scene that is Kirsty when she opens the box, gets transported to the hell dimension, whatever, and she's talking to Pinhead, that scene is good. It's a really fun interaction of this very like, oh, I'm gonna get you, and she's like, actually, what if I do this deal again? And he's like, really? And she's like, okay, just listen, just hear me out for 1 second. My fiance is a piece of shit. I've realized this now. All the men in my life are a fucking nightmare. I've realized. Can you just like take care of him for me? And Pinhead's like, are you serious? You want me to do another thing for you? And then agrees to it because they're pals now, I guess. It's funny. There's a couple like deleted lines from there that are pretty fun too. I try to see the best sometimes even in the worst things. So that's what that's about. Okay. Hellraiser, this is what, 7? Deader is also bad and not so bad it's good. It's not, is it misery territory? Oh. Is it misery territory? It's, I'm gonna keep it here because, and this is very exhausting to say, it's not as bad as it gets. Deader has an interesting premise, similar to Inferno. There is a detective slash journalist. So similar to Inferno and Hellraiser 3, it's like a detective journalist type lady there's this like cult who is basically people that worship the Cenobites and worship like the box and this stuff because their leader has like Cenobite powers, like he can endure pain and gets life from like draining people like a vampire. It's very strange. And so she's trying to like track down this cult because they're like sacrificing people, you know, doing evil goth shit or whatever, like the quote-unquote Satanist kind of behavior. But so here's the thing. The good things about this movie, it's cool that they're bouncing around Europe, going to these different kind of locations to discover things. So there were some interesting like set pieces. And like there's one scene towards the beginning of the film where she's like creeping past this corpse and you're expecting the corpse to wake up, but it doesn't, and it's very tense. That scene is good. The rest is really hot trash. Like none of this, like Pinhead's not in it until like the very last moment, and otherwise like none of the characters are really likable. It's like this very unbelievable kind of goth Satanist cult that's like operating in a subway car. Like they have, like if you go in this one subway car in like insert European country here that I don't remember, then you like go into this weird nightclub in a subway car where they're like really raunchy. They were like, we want to make a cult about the Cenobites, but we don't know how to do it well, and that's what happened. So yeah, kind of this is one of those, like, the biggest thing that I want you to take away from this list, these actually top tier, actually watch those movies because they're enjoyable horror films. Watch these two because watch anything in this category because it's wacky, silly. Preferably watch it with other people so that you can laugh with them. If you're into those, this one is alright, pretty good. These don't do what I did. Don't do what I did, which is watch all of these like back to back in the span of like a week and a half. You'll go crazy and you'll make things like this, and you can't stop after that. Then I read all the comics and I have brain damage. Okay, Hellworld. Oh, this is kind of hard for me because I want to put it in So Bad It's Good, but but it's also kind of bad, but it's also just funny enough that I almost want to say top tier. But I think I'm gonna keep it in So Bad It's Good because this, similar to Deader, but it like actually okay. In terms of like comedic value, this one goes above both of these in terms of comedic value. Um, so the premise of Hellworld is that Hellraiser is a video game, and if you solve the puzzle, you get invited to this special party that's basically like by the maker of the game, who's at his like big mansion. It's pretty much like a ensemble cast haunted house slash murder house horror film where, oh, we're gonna party, we're gonna go to this house, and then like bad things happen. So on the surface, it's very kind of lackluster and disappointing, but it's so funny because it's like one of those movies where people get offed at like a haunted house kind of a situation or like a murder house, but it doesn't take any of that seriously, and it's genuinely hilarious. And I don't know if they were intending it to be so funny. I keep thinking like the cooler version of this film would have been if they went full into the video game side and said Hellraiser is a video game, but that the video game is a type of puzzle box, and if you solve this really hard puzzle in the game, you basically unlock and open the gate into the Hellraiser dimension, and then bad shit happens. And so then it's kind of like a group of friends trying to figure out what happened to one of their friends because they like beat this thing, and maybe they have to like figure out the puzzle in like some obtuse way, and they go in there together to save them or something. I think that would have been like the cooler version of that movie. It probably still would not have been good, but I think if they went further into like we're in a video game and the things that happen in the game happen in real life, I think that would be more entertaining to me personally. But the way that it very much feels like a film that's about how like stupid fandoms are to a degree, and like a kind of being like this very cynical man who's like, I made this video game, and my like, because the subplot is that one of them died supposedly because he was so into the game that like something happened to him. I don't remember what, but he is dead now. And then the creator of the game kind of blames himself, but also his friends. And he's just kind of like doing saw traps against them and doing these like crazy things. And so in a way, he kind of becomes his own kind of Cenobite type character in which he's tormenting these people. And then in the end, it's revealed that Cenobites are real actually, and they get him. And I'm like, so you made a video game that has literally all the same aesthetics and tangible things. Like Hellraiser is an existing like media phenomenon in this world, but is also still real. That's insane. So it's stuff like that that I think pushes it into the just like absolutely crazy, absolutely obscene, very fun. A good party movie. Don't be like me and watch it by yourself like a maniac. Okay, Revelations. Now I have to. I'm gonna make a confession about this and the next film. Revelations and Judgment are the only two Hellraiser movies that I tapped out of, and by that I mean I could not finish them because they were so bad. So I'm gonna talk about them both individually. Revelation is going in misery because there's something like, I think with the right group of friends and the right atmosphere, and if you did a drinking game with it, it could be in the So Bad It's Good category. But as it stands, it's somehow a movie where they did everything wrong. Like, all of the actors don't seem like they want to be there. They can't really act very well. The only actor that I would say is like trying is the actor that's playing Pinhead, who is different than Doug Bradley. It's the first time that Doug Bradley hasn't played the role. he's trying. He's trying his best with this dog shit script. Because the basic premise is that these two fuckboys are going to Tijuana to basically, like, kind of spring break it up, drink, like, hook up with, like, sex workers and do just, like, nasty sexual tourism in this place. Very, very gnarly. And then one of the sex workers, one of them was getting with dies, and they're trying to, like, cover up her murder, and then, like, other stuff happens. They come back to the United States, and then they're, like, the Cenobites chase them down. I really don't remember all the specifics. All I know is that the guy that did it gets pulled into the Hellraiser dimension, and he becomes Pinhead's protege. He gets also, like, the little, like, stabby spikes, and, like, I don't really... it's really, like, it's almost unfathomable how, like, every shot is lit really poorly. Everything is super dark. Nobody's really saying any of their lines convincingly, and they somehow managed to make every single character not likable, which, you know, it's fine to have a cast of people that are, like, not great, because it can be about, oh, you know, let's do kind of like a no exit situation. Hell is other people, you're all locked together, you have to recognize how shitty you all are to each other. But they don't do that. They're more just kind of like locked in a house yelling at each other, and they're all unlikable, and you don't care about any of them, and you just wish they would die so the movie would end. And I think it's the shortest Hellraiser movie, so it's like it even knows that it wants to end as fast as possible. There's no budget to it either. So, like, when they're in the Hellraiser dimension, it really just looks like they're in a garage at night and hung some chains from the ceiling, and then, like, put a blue kind of gray tint over everything to be like, ooh, this is scary. And it's like, this is bad. This isn't scary. Yeah, it's really nasty, especially, like, how heavy the racism is at the beginning, where it's like, I get that you're supposed to be like, oh, look at how much of a shithead this guy is, but it's like, I don't need to see that. Like, I don't need that in my movie to know that this guy is shitty. And now the other film that I tapped out of, Judgment, I'm gonna put this in Misery, but it isn't, here's my hot take, it's not as bad as Revelations. And so hear me out. Judgment is basically like all of the same problems I had with Revelations. The sets are better though, so that's part of the reason why I consider it slightly better than Revelations. The costuming and makeup is better. Like, it feels more produced. It feels more like a movie, whereas Revelations feels like a found footage nightmare documentary that you don't want to watch. Judgment, the main kind of premise, is sort of similar to Inferno, which is sort of similar to Hellseeker, where the main guy is a cop who's like a bad person, and he's trying to solve this case, and he gets taken to like this purgatory zone where they're trying to like judge his soul, sort of, and they like, there's this guy who's typing on his little typewriter, and he's like, ooh, you're kind of nasty. It's like, cool. And he gives like basically his prognosis of how shitty this guy is to this other guy that like eats the paper, and then he like starts vomiting black bile, and then he's like, oh my god, I've never seen him do that before, you must be super evil. It's like, okay, they're doing a lot trying to build out the world building of hell as a bureaucratic kind of system. So there is hell, there is purgatory, and heaven, and this is the part where the movie really like falls apart. I mean, it falls apart because, again, the character's not likable, the plot is non-existent, and by the finale, it's based like, he gets his comeuppance because he's shitty and it's good, but then Pinhead is there because Pinhead's in this movie to be kind of like the boss, And then other people report to Pinhead and they're like, Hell Priest, I'm doing my job. And so he kind of shows up again in the end and is like, I'm gonna get you, nah. And then an angel comes and she's just like this very like platinum blonde, like extremely large blue, like cerulean blue contact lenses and these really cheesy wings, and is just like, heaven isn't gonna like what you're doing. And I'm like, who cares? Why did heaven have to be real? Why did they have to make heaven a thing? And then Pinhead's like, I do what I want. And then she like spites him and he turns human again. And he's like homeless and he's in an alley and he's like, no, kind of like a Darth Vader, no. And I'm like, why? What am I watching? That's why I tapped out and then I watched the end, because I was like, I can't deal with this middle, but I will see the beginning and I will see the end. And this is one that, unlike Revelations, while there are some things that I am giving it points for because of its stylistic merit in some regards, it isn't one that I think, even if you're in a group of friends, seeing how bad it is, I don't think you would really even get any enjoyment out of it. It's just kind of like, it's just kind of sad. It's just kind of like, oh, this movie hates that it's a Hellraiser movie. Yeah, bad time. But saving a high note for last, this is also one that's kind of contentious, is the Hellraiser 2022 movie. Doesn't have a subtitle, it's just Hellraiser, similar to the first movie. So that they're implying it's kind of like a remake, kind of a reimagining of the first Hellraiser. Now, this one, like, when I first watched it, put yourself in my shoes. You watched all of these. And after Hellraiser 2, it just starts to, like, you feel that decline. And when I saw this movie, I was like, holy shit, it's good again. Like, it's amazing. It's like you've been like being waterboarded and then they've taken it off for like a minute and you're like, oh my god, it's good. It's good. Now, is it as good as the first and second films? Hard to say. It's hard, like, for me personally, I really like it. The thing that this Hellraiser movie does differently, sort of like, I mean, this is similar to why Inferno is placed there in kind of like a high-ish spot. It does something interesting with Hellraiser, so it's like, oh, we're going to take a more kind of like divine, ephemeral, angelic look at the Cenobites, which I think is pretty neat. The designs are very like, for some people, they're a little over-designed, and I understand that criticism. There's a lot of, like, these don't really feel like mutilated humans anymore. They just kind of feel like, here are these beings that just kind of look this way. So there's that isn't as appealing, but I genuinely am a really big fan of the designs in this film. Like, they do a lot with practical effects that are really cool. I especially love, like, the main, like, Hell Priestess, Pinhead character, and the redesign of the Chatterer was also pretty cool. Yeah, the villain in this film, this was also something that put it higher. It was really refreshing because the villain, like the actual villain of this movie, was a guy, and I think that's really one of the big things that Hellraiser's supposed to be about, is that, like, the Cenobites are this strange, like, group of people, but they're also kind of like an ephemeral force. They're not the actual kind of, like, villains. Hellworld did that, and Deader kind of did that, but I think that this Hellraiser does it kind of well. Like, she's still, like, Riley, who's the main character in this one, she does get kind of hunted down by the Cenobites a little bit. It's fun. They're being kind of flirty. I'm like, cool. And I really like Voight, who's the main villain. I like his kind of conceit, how he's this. You have a character that's kind of like Frank in that they're very obviously seeking beyond physical, like, sensation goals. They also do some interesting lore in the sense of, like, oh, you can search for, like, pleasure, you can have love, you can have, like, reanimation. There's different kind of, like, wants that you can do these devil's bargains for that I found interesting. I kind of like it that, similar to Frank, you have this villain that's, like, thought that he got what he wanted, but in reality got, like, horrible nightmare bullshit. So I like that. And I think that the resolution and finale of it is kind of, it's a mixed bag for me, because in ways it's like, oh, I'm not going to save this person because I know that you're just like a devil's bargain. I know, even though this looks good on paper, there's going to be some, like, horrifying shit as, like, the trade-off. I understand the reasoning, but there's also a certain point where, like, you see how the Cenobites, like, and you see from previous films too, like, they usually keep their bargains and they can leave people alone and they can do kind of, like, quote-unquote good things. So there's a certain point where I was like, I mean, like, you might as well. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I would say that on a technical level, I really like how the film is shot. I really like the interesting, like, sets and effects and different things they have going on. I think it's really neat. But I think on, like, a story perspective compared to the previous, it's not quite, like, it doesn't feel as kind of, like, sure of itself, in the sense of, like, I wish it was campier, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, I wish that it kind of went the extra mile to be a little wackier. But that's why it's kind of similar to Inferno. It's like, it's taking itself kind of seriously, and that works to its favor, but also sometimes to its detriment. Whereas the first two Hellraisers, they really, like, they take themselves seriously to a degree, but then they know it's like, we're being wacky. So yeah, this is my final ranking. It's definitely, see, the problem with how this looks is that it looks like I enjoy Hellseeker and Deader more than these three. So I'm gonna put fucking WoW back here, because, like, this more visually represents how I rank the films. Even though I like this Hellraiser more than Hellworld, this is the kind of structure. So yeah, I would, like, final thoughts for this. Hellraiser is good, but Hellraiser is also sometimes not good. All of these, I would say, are memorable, for better or worse. For better or worse, they are memorable. Pinhead also says hello and goodbye. Everyone have a great time with whatever you're doing. Small, smallify.